This week's episode is brought to you in part by MPix, delivering the highest quality prints and products from your photos. Shoot today, upload tonight, we ship tomorrow.
On this week's show, I'm going to show you how to do a really cool edge effect really quickly.
I'm going to show you how to do a layer style shortcut.
And I've got a tip for using preset patterns, and it all starts right now.
Welcome to PhotoshopUser TV, brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. And now, here are your hosts, the Photoshop guys.
Hey everyone, welcome to another clandestine episode of PhotoshopUser TV, episode 277, brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. Wow, look at that's like the 3D magazine.
I had to do it all stylish this time.
Publishers of PhotoshopUser.
I mean, Matt's really good with the
snap.
I just had to do
you gotta do your own thing.
Get a little elegant this time.
Yeah,
there it is. It fades in. There we go. Okay.
So PhotoshopUser magazine,
Yes.
all coming to you now 10 times a year, chock full of amazing Photoshop goodness.
Goodness me.
I'm Dave Cross. On this week's episode, Corey Barker is here.
Hello, hello.
And so is Pete Collins.
Hey there.
And all the other guys, who cares? They're not here.
We got rid of them.
Till another time. I'm sure they'll be back if we let them.
They're somewhere. They're in the break
But
room.
we're going to do our best to show you some things, the likes of which you have never seen unless you watched like last week's show, because it's going to be
Pretty much the same
stuff, just with
Yes.
different photos. So
I'm rebooting tutorials I did yesterday.
for those viewers that maybe on the odd chance you might be a first-time viewer here, we do this event called Photoshop Worlds coming up just a couple of weeks now, but there's still time to sign up, so you can still
Actually,
come
just a
and
few
join
days.
me.
A few
days. It's almost.
It's true. I'm losing track of time. It's already almost that time.
We're just days away.
Las Vegas, come and join us. And
Yes.
You can even
all
walk
the
up and
Photoshop
sign
guys.
up when you get there.
You can. And in fact, there also is the opportunity to go just for one day. So if you're a local to the Las Vegas area, you can even come
Yeah,
for
an
one
expo
day.
pass, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's a good place to see live in person the kind of stuff we do all the time here on Photoshop TV.
And it's even more spectacular in person.
It really is. I mean, it's a lot of people say, and then they go once, and then it's on their to-do list every time if they can, because it's really, it's pretty cool to be in a place where you know, without even having to ask, that the person sitting next to you is into Photoshop, because that's why they're there.
Yeah,
so whether they're a photographer or designer, you know you've got something to talk about, and you meet all sorts of interesting people.
You don't have to say, what do you do? You just say, well, what do you do in Photoshop? You know, and it's very specific.
It's a nerdapalooza, and it's great.
Indeed.
And you know, one of the things that I think is really interesting that we don't really talk about, we talk about the learning and talking to the instructors, but I know, having talked to quite a few, this will be my 21st Photoshop World, I believe. I've talked to a number of people who said they met someone 5 years ago at Photoshop World that are now like good friends, even though they're in different parts of the country, or in some cases the world.
Yeah.
They still correspond and share ideas, and you know, when they have a problem, they know someone they can ask.
Yeah.
That's kind of a neat additional aspect, is that kind of
It's happened to me. I've got
networking.
friends I communicate with quite often nowadays that I've met specifically at Photoshop World. So you never know.
It's a great networking opportunity.
So photoshopworld.com, you can find out all the details, and hopefully you shall join us.
Hopefully so.
So I have a little tutorial for you. Now, as soon as I opened this photograph, Pete said my line of horizon is not straight.
It's really bothering me.
Which is quite correct. And just to bother him, I'm not going to fix that in this tutorial.
And now you're going to bother everyone else because they
I know,
didn't
they're gonna
notice
look
it
at it.
until you pointed it
But
out.
Curse you, Dave
This
Cross.
is a stock photo, because if it was my photo, it would be even more crooked. But it's a stock photo. But here's something. I'm working on a class for Kelby Training, an update to my finishing touches class, and I kind of discovered this little goodie, and I thought, this is pretty cool. So what I want to do is do an edge effect, but one that's very editable and changeable. So I'm going to just make
That
a
means you
little
can eat it,
marquee
doesn't it?
selection. Yeah, editable.
I have trouble with that word too.
And so then I click on the Add Layer Mask button, which of course adds a layer mask based on that selection. Now, just so I can see what it's going to look like, I'm going to add a layer below and fill it with white. But here's what I thought. I've done this for years, but discovered just the other day this kind of neat little trick. And what I want to do is paint along the edge of this layer mask to make it more interesting, but instead of me painting, have the paint be automated. So to do that, I'm going to make a selection again out of my layer mask. I just Command or Control clicked on this, go to my Paths panel, and choose Make Work Path. And I'm going to use the lowest number you can, which is 0.5. That'll make the path very, very close to the actual shape that I have. So now I've got this path loaded, and I'm still on the layer mask. So what I want to do is use my paintbrush. So I'll switch to the paintbrush and use a brush to paint along the path. Now let me just show you here. If I go down here at the bottom of the paths panel. Actually, let me just pick a brush. There we go.
Say that 5 times fast.
If I click on this icon, you'll see it paints along the path and makes a nice little border. And that's the way I've always done it. And if I want to add some pressure sensitivity, you Option or Alt click on that stroke path, and then you can say, well, use the, where is the brush? I can see it here somewhere. Hello, brush. Yeah, there it is. And then choose Simulate Pressure, and that kind of changes it up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to turn that back off again, because here, this is all leading up to the actual tip. So this is the way I always did it.
You mean we're not there yet?
No, now we are, though. So here I've got my brushes panel. Let me go back. So I'm on the layer mask. But what I discovered, completely by accident, I thought this was pretty cool. If I say, well, I want to try this brush, I just hit Enter, and it applies it. And then I can undo and say, what about this brush? So all I'm doing is just trying a brush and saying, ooh, let's put the the Canadian maple leaves around the outside. Okay, maybe not.
Ooh.
But the whole idea is I'm just hitting Enter each time. I don't have to go back to the paths panel when I want to see what it looks like. I'm just able to very quickly try something. And in each case, if I wanted to try the weird stars and say, well, what if I made them smaller? That would be better. Then I just hit Enter to update, or the other way around, make them bigger. So it's just a really neat way to kind of experiment with brushes without having to always be going back to the paths panel to say, what happens if I try something else? And the only time you have to go back there is if you want to add that pressure sensitivity thing.
Brushes.
So brushes, borders, and of course the nice thing about this whole thing is when you're finished, you might look at it and say, okay, let's hide that path. Even if you don't like it, of course, it's still just painted on the layer mask, so you can always adjust it, apply filters, do whatever.
So
That's great.
kind of cool way to apply that really quickly like that.
Now, would you please straighten the horizon for me?
No, I'm going to leave it open the whole taping of the show.
I just love that.
Oh.
That you're able to draw or apply a brush to a path like
Yeah.
that. That's a feature I think that tends to be forgotten. You know, you might be shown once and you're like, oh, that's cool, but then you forget about it.
You know, I saw a really great example, and I wish I could remember his name so I could give him credit, but he had a really interesting idea where he had a bunch of telephone wires in the sky. He drew a path and then stroked with the healing brush and then just moved the path and did it again.
That was
Moved it
Brian.
and did it
That was
again.
Brian Hidden Gems.
Yeah, I thought that was a really clever idea.
Yeah. Very cool stuff.
So-
All right. I have a tip.
Good.
It's a very short one. It's going to talk about patterns inside Photoshop, how you can use preset. You can define your own patterns, of course, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But I think a lot of people tend to forget what's built in. There's a lot of preset patterns, like brushes and layer styles, that are built into Photoshop, load with the program, that are living right inside there, and you probably never knew they were there. So if I go and take this document and create a new blank layer and fill it with gray, I'm going to go and add a layer style. We're going to add a pattern overlay. Now, I like to apply patterns that I've defined or use as presets as a layer style because it gives you the ability to scale it and reposition it because it tiles it, basically. And you're able to do a whole lot of different things with it. But if you go and click on the pattern menu here, you'll tend to see a default menu. But if you just click on this other pop-up menu here, you've got all these different categories of patterns, rock patterns, textures. These are all built into Photoshop. You have them, they're there, go and check them out. But if you just simply go and click around and load them, you can see it gives me this kind of a cool weaving pattern. I can change the scale of it down a little bit. I can click inside the image while the layer style panel is open and move the pattern around and reposition it wherever I want it to go. And I can also change the blend mode. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to apply this pattern on a colored background. Well, I'm going to go over here and change the blend mode of this to overlay. But I'm also going to go into the blending options here and drop the fill opacity. And for those of you who aren't sure what the difference between fill and the fill opacity and the regular opacity is, the opacity will affect everything on the layer. Layer styles, pixels, anything that's on the layer will affect it universally with this one. But by dropping the fill opacity, you are dropping just the opacity of the pixels on the layer. The layer styles will remain intact and 100%. So if I drop that down to 0, and let's fill this background layer with like blue, you can see that now it's interacting with that background element because of that layer style. We're able to see through it. And I can always go back in here and just reposition the pattern. I can change the pattern altogether if I like. Maybe I like this weave better. And I can go, of course, scale it, do whatever you want with it. And there's a lot of very cool things you can do with just the stuff that's built in there. Like brushes, you can go and experiment with the presets and just come up with a whole bunch of different combinations. Now, just before, let me finish up, talked about defining your own pattern. And I'm a big texture freak. I love to go out and just shoot textures and use them for various reasons. And I do this a lot with them. I'll define them as patterns. But in this case, this is a carbon fiber pattern. It's actually seamless. And if you do searches for patterns that you're going to define like this in Photoshop on a site like iStock Photo, try and look for the seamless patterns. It's going to make it a little bit easier for you. Because all you need to do is open it up, go into the Edit menu, and choose Define Pattern. And then give it a name. Let's call it Carbon for now. And now,
like Fred or something.
Now that
George.
And now that pattern lives inside Photoshop. It's pretty much on tap for whenever I need it. So if I jump back over to this file and go back into this layer style, and there I can see there it is at the bottom of my list. I'll just change the blend mode back to normal. But now that pattern's there. I can move it around. I can scale it. I have so many different options with it just by simply defining it. And you can define anything. Anything you open up in Photoshop can be defined as a pattern. So certainly something worth experimenting, not just with your own patterns, but also with those presets that are buried inside there. There's a lot of good ones in there.
Now, I know for a brush preset, it has to be constrained within 2,500 pixels.
That's right.
Is that the same with the pattern?
Not that I've seen. Well, you don't want to go and define like a 4 by 5 foot image, because you're ultimately going to scale it down anyway. So yeah, I would keep it pretty high res for the sake of detail, like you would with a brush. But I haven't seen a limit yet. But just don't push it. Probably keep it within the same rules as the brush. Don't go too high. So.
I think one of the really important things there too is there are various ways of adding a pattern, like the fill command and the pattern brush, but this is the only place you can scale it.
Exactly.
So I think that's a lot of people miss that and just use a pattern brush and go, I don't like the size of my pattern.
Scale it and even slightly adjust its positioning just in case, because it tiles it. So it's a lot of good uses there.
Very nice. Well, I see on the official thing that we need to toss
to a break. Underwater basketball.
Yes. Underwater basketball when we come back after this short break. Hey, we are back from our break.
Now we're going to go over and see a quick tutorial from Michael Fineman.
Hey folks, Matt Kloskowski here on the set of PhotoshopUser TV with advertising photographer Michael Fineman. You're based out of Miami, Florida.
Yep.
And we had Michael come up here to the studios for a day. He's got some really great. I mean, the photography is great and everything that you've shown me.
Oh,
but
thank you.
At the same time, we brought you on Photoshop TV because there's, especially in the work that you do, there's a lot of Photoshop involved. So I thought it'd be great to be able to show people, everything starts with a good photo, but to see some of the Photoshop techniques that you do too.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to say one thing. People don't realize, because I'm on the set, and you don't see this at home, but what you don't realize is that how really kind everyone is here and helpful. I mean, I even mentioned to Matt that, because he's like the rock star of NAP. I mean, you are a rock star. I was wondering if they had like M&M candies with a little, only one color. And Matt made that dream come true for me. It only cost me $49.95. He was very kind. So it wasn't, thank you, Matt.
I don't have any money to pay you with here. You can have my phone for saying that.
Oh, thank you. Well,
here, I'll tell you. No, you know what? I'll give you a copy of PhotoshopUser magazine.
Thank you. He's taking it away. He gave it to me and he took it away.
I know, I'm bad like
nice guy. Okay.
What do you got for us today?
I want to talk about something, because I'm an advertising photographer, and I live with Photoshop. If I didn't have Photoshop, I'd probably be saying those famous words, "You want fries with that shake?" So consequently, I'm really, really lucky to have discovered the power of Photoshop and the power of NAP. You guys make my life really easy.
Thank you.
But one of the things that I do as an advertising photographer, a lot of times I have to make the things look real as opposed to looking tricked out. If it's tricked out in advertising, a lot of times the client will look at it and think, oh, it's fake. And if they think it's fake, then it loses credibility.
Yeah.
So one of the most difficult things to photograph is metals. And I told Matt I have a question for him, and this is a trick question. So I'm going to say, what is this?
A metal ball.
A metal ball. Now, yes, it's a metal ball. However, to a photographer, this is not a metal ball. It is a circular mirror. And the mirror shows everything. And if you see this, you can see all the lights, you see myself, you see Matt, you see the cameras, everything. The question is, how do you photograph metal that makes it look metallic
Without seeing.
without seeing?
Yeah.
And the other aspect of it is this, is that if I just put white here, and I'll use your book, that's a good example. Here, I'll find a white page. Here we go. And if I do this, yeah, okay, now you can see the shape of it. The problem is that if you totally surround this in white, it looks painted because metal has to have bright highlights, rich blacks, and the area has to have a tonal range. So I brought an example today to show you. This is a wheel, and this wheel is from a truck, and this is my straight shot that I open in Bridge. I love Bridge, by the way. It gives me lots of control. And
You and Dave Cross do.
yeah, well, look, I'm learning from another good guy, So what I did is I opened this image in Bridge, and in the name of time, I'm going to just show you different steps to take this down from that step. I'm going to, here we go, I'm going to show you what it looks like.
Kind of the progression.
The progression from that to that.
Ah.
From that to that. I mean, that is a dramatic look. There is no doubt when you look at this image here that it's metal. Why? Well, you have very bright white specular highlights, you have rich blacks, and you have contrast. That says metal. But this is our original right here. So the question is, how do you get from that stage to this?
How do you get from that stage?
Glad you asked, man. Well, it's part of the magic of Photoshop. And by opening this, and I don't know if you want, I didn't open it in Camera Raw. I didn't know if you had time, so I didn't open it in Camera Raw.
Okay.
But do you want me to open Camera Raw?
No, it's,
Okay.
I mean.
By doing this, one of the things I do in Camera Raw is I slide down saturation to -100. So immediately we have a black and white. And that's why I'm not worried about, as you see, there's some blue in the background. And then I just give it a little bit of contrast. I use clarity. Clarity really punches up my tones, my midtones.
Good for metals, too.
And it makes metals look great. But one of the problems I always have, and here, here I'm going to just desaturate this image right up here just by, sorry, lightness would be nice. It would be nice if I, there we go, if I turn down saturation instead. And one of the things you see is now it's almost monotone. And I have trouble working with this, even though all I did was desaturate it. So I go to my next step, and this is a step that I always do that makes my life a lot easier, is I silhouette it. And just by silhouetting that image, which had blacks added and the clarity, you can see already that it's looking more metallic. Now, because that's the final, here we go. See, there and there. So now, this is from going from our desaturated image to a silhouette. Already it's starting to look. One of the things that you need, and this is important to show contrast, if I have something like this, the whole front of this is really very flat right now. So what I do is I just take a magic wand and I will literally select the edge of this piece. So the truth is, that's way too much. We're going to do it just like 10. All I want to do is create the edge. So this actually is okay. And even though it's overkill, it doesn't matter because I immediately put on a quick mask on it, and then with my brush, I will come back and I will eliminate. This
some of the other
edge.
okay.
See, so now, and I'm going to do this fast because we are in, and not go for aesthetics right now. Okay. One of the other things I do is I also will blur this after I'm done.
So it kind of softens the selection a little.
It softens it, and it takes the edge right off. And I just go blur, and it makes it, like you said, it gets rid of the hard edge quality. Okay. Now, once I do that, I come over here, and, excuse me, and I get a reading because I think it's very important to know what our images look like. And now in my info, I'm at 173, and I'm just going to use levels and you can see that area is really dark. So I'm going to boost it up, and let me look at my numbers. I want to get into 220s, so that's very high. There we go, and that's good. That's 213. And the other, and I'm going to inverse my selection. Oh, I deselected. Well, I needed also to brighten the physical wheel itself before, which is what I did,
but the edge.
So when I do that, I end up with this, which is now this defined sharpness, this right here, and that starts to give me, again, a better image. And now I just added, I'm going down to another step, and that's for contrast. Again, using levels, just punch the blacks in.
Well, very cool stuff. So let's finish off. Really, where can people find out more about you? Take a look at your work and
thank you.
Become a Michael Fineman follower.
Okay, at michaelfineman.com. Very simple.
Makes sense.
And I want to truly thank you for being here. And I just wanted to know, am I supposed to wash your car and wax it for being here, or just wash it? I forgot.
No, that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and you just make my wheels look like this.
Oh, okay.
Can you do that?
Yeah, that would be great.
But really, like, do that.
That would be great.
That'd be perfect. Well, hey, thanks for coming by the studio. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
And we're back. Thanks, Michael, for that tip. Very cool stuff. So we're going to move on.
We are, and we're going to go right down the line to Pete, who has a tip. I see he has 4,000 layers here to show you.
Yes, I do have a few layers, and since I'm Pete, I'm going to do something on feet, and it's pretty neat.
Sweet.
Whee! All right, this is pretty simple, but some people may not know that when you've got, let's say you apply a layer style, say to this first one, this foot up here, I've got these different things going on. I've got drop, shadow, color, overlay, and stroke. Now, if I wanted to add these to the other layers, I cannot simply just highlight them and then try to drag that over and apply it to the different ones. It's only going to do it to the top one. So in order for me to be able to apply this to each layer, I've got to literally drag it on each layer. Now these are all in line, and you could do it. It'll only take you a minute to do it, but let's say you've got a lot of layers and you've got them separated out. It can become kind of a pain to do that. So one of the easiest things to do is just simply create a style from this. Once you got that first foot the way you like it, you just simply hit New Style and you name it Fred. I was going to do, we're going to name it Fred. I was going to name it Pete's Neat Feet. But, and once you name that, now you come over to your styles palette, and it will be the last one there. And now if you highlight all the different layers you want and simply click on it once, it will apply that layer style to each and every layer, and it's done in one shot. So you could literally go in and with your control button, select just individual layers throughout your whole layers panel and apply a style to it. And so it's quick and easy. Take care of applying something to a bunch of layers.
You can never go wrong getting off on the right foot.
Oh, you should have left that one alone.
I was going to say that was really looked like a large document. It's like 18 feet wide.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
Do we have time for one more bad foot joke?
Quickly, break before we have any more bad feet jokes. So we're going to take a break and come back. We'll have a contest that'll wrap up. You can win some stuff. And don't go away.
I told you not to make fun of me.
Hey everybody, RC here from Kelby Media Group. Now, you're a photographer and you want to be able to get on the web, but you don't know how to code and you don't really want to spend a lot of money. So what do? Chances are you'd probably start with this book on HTML. And you're probably going to need to learn how to style, and you'll start with this book on CSS. Little by little, you'll start picking up all of these different books that you think you're going to need in order for you to be able to make that perfect website. At the end of the day, you have this giant stack of books and not really that much of a website. Or you can use this book. This is a step-by-step book to be able to take you from start to finish on how to be able to build a website. So it's a start to finish, it's all built in one book, and it's here. Get your photography on the web. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, it's contest time, and if you've been watching for a while, you know we've kind of changed things up. A while back, we used to make you do a whole trivia question, but after a while, it just became too hard to come up with questions. So instead, it's even easier now. You just go to Kelby TV to the Photoshop User TV.
Can we really call it a contest?
Well, it's a contest because it's a random draw.
Oh.
As opposed to, that's the contestable part.
Isn't that gambling? Oh, wait, no.
No, of course not.
Who told you that?
We'll tell you again how to do it in a second, but Corey, what will they win?
They will win. If you're the lucky winner, you will get a gift card for Adorama. Nice. You can buy some really cool photography stuff. And a new book. This is from Steve Simon. It is The Passionate Photographer. Kind of just talking about his work and things like that. It's got some really beautiful imagery in here. Definitely worth checking out. Cool. You will receive that and the Adorama gift card if you can tell us what size shoe Dave Cross wears. No, I have no idea.
No, as we said, you just go to the Kelby TV site. There's a big place where you can add comments. Just add some kind of comment. You can be as simple as hello, or you guys are this was the most amazing show in the entire history of Photoshop User TV that will not help you in any way to win, but it just makes us feel good.
Flattering nonetheless.
So flattery is good, but we just randomly pick a name. Someone picks a name, not us. Someone randomly picks a name, and that's it.
That's it.
And I see like the thing is going close show, and it's like flashing. It's like stop talking.
It's flashing red now.
Dave, we don't talk enough about on this show?
Prizes?
Love. Oh, wait, that's Scott's line. Sorry.
I'm sure we'll hear that again.
Tune in next week for the love episode.
So thank you for joining us. We, as always, thank you for watching. We thank the sponsors from Corey and Pete and myself. So long, and we shall see you next time for episode 278 of Photoshop User TV.
Bye. See you in Vegas.